Hello, everyone. Welcome to A Turn of Events, where we help put a positive spin on the future of your business. I'm Annette Naif, the CEO and creative director of Naif Productions. We are a strategic event production company based in New York City, and now we're into Florida and Boca area, so we're excited about that. We also we do corporate, social, nonprofit, and weddings. We can help with live, virtual, hybrid, whatever kind of event you want to do. Consult with you on it, help you take your your live event to a virtual platform. We can talk to you about that. Everybody's we're kind of moving into live events now more than anything, but there's still a few of them that are doing some virtual events. We also help coach wedding and event planners on how to start an event planning business. Very exciting. I have a coaching program that's going to be starting in the summer. You don't want to miss it. If you are a wedding and event planner and you want some help with your business getting started, or you're struggling with your current business, contact us over at the Event Planner Society. Very great group. It's a Facebook group. Go over to Event Planner Society. We would love to have you. Now, I am very, very excited for my next guest, Zipporah Monique. We are going to talk about leading with empathy, how emotional intelligence can drive business success, which is very interesting. So we haven't had anybody on this like this before, so I'm very excited to talk with her. Zipporah Monique is an executive coach, emotional intelligence consultant, and leadership speaker with over 11 years of invigorating leaders and high-performing professionals to adopt emotional and social learning to maximize their strengths to foster change. She uses awareness, analysis, action, and achievement to enhance the lives of her clients and their businesses in a healthy, transformational way. After more than a decade of working with high-performing individuals, HPIs, in various industries, she's determined that nothing dictates how successful a person is in achieving a goal more than EQ. Zipporah has worked with thousands of leaders across the US and Canada to guide them toward greater clarity, deepen their self-awareness, and identify special goals and actions to increase their impact through the practical application of groundbreaking emotional intelligence techniques and mindset strategies. I am excited. Let's get started. How are you, my dear?
I am doing amazing, Annette. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the wonderful introduction.
Of
I'm
course,
super
that's a
excited to be here.
mouthful, but it's a lot. So, but emotional intelligence is a lot. So we're going to talk about that. But why don't we talk first about like where you came from, how you got to where you are now?
Oh, yes. One of my favorite stories. So I grew up in the Atlanta area. And I always like to tell people the reason why I can teach emotional intelligence is because I absolutely had none growing up. I
Oh yeah.
was just emotionally volatile. I was hurt from trauma. I really just didn't know where to put my emotions, or I just thought my emotions were literally anger and happiness, and that was really it. And
Yeah.
as I grew up, I really found out the power of leveraging your emotions, not only in my personal life, but especially in business, right? Um, and I found that out by the way of, so I have my master's in biology, as well as I was on my way to dental school, and I was on my way of doing all of these different things. But I knew that I couldn't keep not paying attention to my emotions and not paying attention to what my body was saying. Emotions is kind of like that sixth sense. Essentially, it's definitely
Right.
it's an indicator of your triggers, your traumas, what's going on as a mental or emotional. So I really had to like lock down on what those things mean and really become emotionally intelligent.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. What so let's jump right into it. What is
Yeah.
your definition of emotional intelligence and how important is it in the workplace?
Absolutely. So, emotional intelligence is really being able to know your emotions and the emotions of those around you. When you do that, you are able to show up authentically, and then you're also able to pick up on those social cues that everybody else is kind of putting off, essentially. And why is it's important in the workplace? for one, we deal with so many different personalities, so many different cultures, so many different perspectives. And when we are approaching work in biases, or we're approaching it in a place of just being really strict and not being vulnerable and not looking at a person as being human and having needs, that's where we're lost. That's where our customer service doesn't do well. That's where employee retention decreases, and that's where employees just really don't feel like they belong. So that's why it's super super important. And just overall, it really just increases that company culture as well as increases profitability.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, how can leaders cultivate empathy and emotional intelligence in themselves, and how can they promote it in their teams?
Absolutely. One of my favorite questions, because as an executive coach, I really take my clients through being just emotionally distant to being emotionally intelligent, especially in the workplace. So, what I tell my clients is that sh- leaders, being a leader, it's not coming from your title, right? A lot of
Mhm.
people are like, oh, I have this title now that I'm a leader, but it's really how you deal with people and how you deal with the nuances and so on and so forth that really people bring. So you have to have the active listening. You have to provide empathy. You have to provide just a sense of belonging, not only in yourself, but also in coming from people that you talk to, right? You have to understand what their needs and wants are, because if people needs and wants aren't met, they're not going to stay with you. They're not going to fight for your mission. They're not going to fight for your purpose. So
Right.
really just showing up. I tell some of my clients that you can just have one-on-one sessions with your employees and figure out who they are beyond their name, figure out who they are beyond their title. So that you can follow up with them, or even so, I know a lot of people like, oh, personal development activities, but yes, personal development activities. There's some people who are observers in a group, right? And some people look at those observers as you're not contributing, when that they work best at observing. Or there's some people with high energy, and they're just like, oh my gosh, I really want to do all these different things and these different ideas, and they have to be reined in. So you really have to understand the personality that you're working with. So having those strategic tests and
Right.
strategic quizzes, trying to figure out personalities, I think that's super super important.
It is. And for an example of that, because as you know, I own an event business and I work with
Yeah.
a lot of different kinds of people, from the clients to the venue and all the staff on the venue, and then
Yes.
all of our vendors. There could be 100 people putting together an event, and there's a lot of different personalities, right? So when I learned early on, and this is for all of my event planners out there who are listening and are looking to start their own business, and they have a business and they have their team. One thing I learned was, I would hire people and I would think that, okay, because I can do everything, right? I can do the logistics and I can do the on-site and I can run the business and I can do, not everybody can do that. So I
Yeah.
learned that early on when I talked to someone, I'm like, what is the favorite things that you love to do? Do you like to do logistics? Do you like to only be on site? Do you like to do both? Because if they don't like doing logistics, it's going to be a nightmare and they're not going to be happy. So I didn't realize that early on when I, started the business many, many moons ago. So it's something that I think is really getting to know what is it that they like to do, what fires them up, what makes them excited about their job, and things like that, and making sure that they're happy. So they're not all good at those tasks. I learned that,
Absolutely.
and unfortunately had to, move some people around or let them go because it wasn't what they were good at. So you know, it's not for everyone, but there
Mhm.
are different tasks that you can do within the organization. So that's something to think about. So kind of tie.
Absolutely. No, amazing point. And to your point, I think that a lot of people want to focus on weaknesses and getting better at those weaknesses.
Yeah.
But literally, let's bring out those strengths. We have our
Right.
talents for those reasons. So, to your point, figuring out what a person likes, what a person doesn't like, because it really just goes into how they show up and how they show up in their work and their
Yeah.
milestones.
Exactly. They're not going to be good at what they're doing if they don't love it. So, or if they're not good at it, then they're not
Absolutely.
gonna be great with, details. So that can be something. So, can you give an example of how emotional intelligence has led to successful business outcomes, such as increased revenue or employee engagement?
Absolutely. I'll give you this one example. So a client came and started working with me saying that, man, I have this really amazing product. I have this really amazing team that I'm on, but I really can't get repeat customers. So I can't get repeat customers. So what's going on in my business? So I sat in on a couple of their service calls. I sat in on a couple of um, on one of their staff meetings. And I came to the conclusion that you just don't have customer service. You don't have empathy with your clients. And therefore, they see that it's an amazing product. They might buy from you once, but there's no repeat customers. There's no word of mouth. There's no referrals
Yeah.
because of your customer service. There's no follow up. There's no bringing human or emotions or having them feel like this is a company, right?
Hmm.
People don't buy your product, right? You can have an amazing product, but people buy your story. People buy who you are. And without that, people aren't going to come back. So what we did was cleaned up their customer service, cleaned up how they talk to people, really brought in the personality of the business, and now they have look completely different. We increased their revenue not only because the word of mouth got out, was like, man, this is a vegan company. The product, the service, the everything about this
Hmm.
company is amazing.
Hmm.
Um, and that's how we increased their revenue. Or in another way, there was a leader who was CEO, and he was like, I can't get through to my clients. I feel like everybody doesn't want to be here. They show up in a bad mood. They do this. They don't understand the milestones. They don't understand the key performance indicators. I just don't know what to do with them. Well, I'm like, well, have you sat down and talked to them? What do you mean? I talk to them on staff meetings. I talk to them every morning,
Yeah.
right? During and it's like, no, have you sat down and really got into their desires, their wants, their needs, going back to what you said, their strengths. Have you really got into that? It was like, well, no, whatever their job description is, I expect them to do.
Yeah.
And while that may sound good and that may sound good, fine and dandy, but you came to me to provide a solution. Sit down with your employees and really ask them, get into who they are, get into what they like, get into their desires. Now, some people may think, well, why do I have to do all that for company? That makes your clients feel at home. That makes your clients understand their purpose,
Mhm.
right? Purpose is very, very big in people's lives, especially in the culture that we're currently in. We need a sense of belonging. We need a sense of purpose. We need a sense of that we're doing something worth the value. So
Right.
if you're going to give your clients that type of value, they're going to give it back to you tenfold. So
Right.
that's why it's so important. The money is not in the C-suite level. While they're amazing and they can manage and so on and so forth, but it's those worker bees, it's those employees that's going to tell people, oh my God, this is an amazing place to work. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, this is I've never worked for a company like this. Right? Because you heard the companies that are like, you heard the companies that have bad retention. Okay, we don't like the work here and things of that nature. That bad news travels so much faster than good news
Oh yeah.
does.
Worked at some of
So
them.
exactly,
Prior
exactly.
to having my business, I have a big corporate background, so I have worked at them, and I worked in film and television, and I worked in music. So
Oh
entertainment
yeah.
is brutal. So all those stories they say about film and television is true. I worked in it for many years, and
Yeah.
17 years I was in film and television. So I'm well aware of that. And it was brutal back then, back in the day when there weren't a lot of rules in place. You could kind of do anything in those
Mhm.
days. But so it's I completely understand, and I'm having flashbacks from my corporate days when and even as a woman, and I hate to bring that up, but I was always like, great with detail. Obviously, I did a lot of events. I did film production work, so I was a producer
Mhm.
doing production work. So I was always doing something to do with organizing an event of some kind, and I wanted to be a producer. a film producer, and that was never going to happen. So they
Mm.
never allowed, it was just not a thing that was going to happen back in those days. So I'm kind of glad that didn't happen, but it was a brutal industry. So
Yeah, it is.
it is, and so they didn't, you couldn't get advanced. Even when I worked for a real commercial real estate company, and they there was things that I could have done they gave to men. So it was really brutal. And then I decided, you know what? I'm sick of this. I'm just going to start my own business, and I get to choose who I work with. I get
Yeah.
to choose my customers and who the people I work around, because, the employees in the office were miserable. Everybody was miserable. I walk in and go, "Good morning," and no one would say anything. And I'd be like, "Ugh,"
Yes.
every day I hated that,
Yes.
because I'm a pretty
Yeah.
happy person. So that's not a fun environment to be around. I want to work with people who are fun, get the job done, serious about what they do, but are fun, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
about. I have to be miserable. So I could so relate to that. So how can leaders use empathy to better understand their customers' needs and improve customer satisfaction?
Absolutely. I think that in a world where we have no idea what people are going through, really just going the extra mile, right? It's like understanding that your principles is going to be connection, vulnerability, and just value. I think though when we start with those three things, we
Mm,
really can just automatically get customer satisfaction. I've worked in hospitality, I worked in the medical field, I worked now owning my own business in emotional intelligence. And really, those three things, if without those three things, without that trifecta, it's really not going to have that customer satisfaction, right? Just think about it. If your loved one was in the hospital, the type of bedside manner that you want to provide, it's kind of like the same thing with clients. We want to be heard. We want to be, like I can come to you and really that you care about my needs and just not, softening the blow to your no,
yeah.
essentially. But we really want that. So I think that when we're providing empathy, we're really stepping inside of someone else's shoes. Keep in mind, we didn't say sympathy. We're talking about empathy. I'm stepping inside of your shoes and really, how do I want to be treated? Or the golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated. I think that if you provide that, I want to be treated like a human. We all do. We want to be treated with softness. We want to be treated with belonging. So I think that if we understand that, we really can go a long way with our client satisfaction.
Yeah, I always try to make sure that my employees have a work-life balance. I mean, it's hard in the
Absolutely.
event industry because we're super busy, and luckily I have a busy business, but I want, family first, yourself
Absolutely.
first, taking care of yourself. It's super important, and having fun, and having a full life without just work, 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 work. It's not just about that. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, and just wanting to understand. I had one client who used to start the meetings, because we would have a meeting on a Tuesday, and they would start the meetings with going around for like 30 seconds or whatever it was to everyone on the call, and how was your weekend and what did you do this weekend. So it's just kind of nice to kind of get to know your team and break the ice and find out where everybody's at, and have empathy for something that might have happened to them over the weekend, and understanding how they're going through what's happening to them this week, or however it looks. And I just thought that was a kind of a nice touch to add a little personal, instead of just jumping right into everything, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
No,
very,
I'm so glad you brought that up.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was like, I'm so happy that you brought that up. Is it really is that personal touch. Or another one of my clients, we was like, hey, share your wins. So share your wins, and they can also provide your personal wins, your work wins, and then also provide a challenge that you're going through, so we can kind of help you and give you a resource right now. So even with either one of those things, it really just brings in that I care about you rather than you're just a person on the Zoom call, essentially. And the work life balance piece, so, so, so important. And I'm so happy that you do that, Annette, because not enough people do that. I think that mental health is so important. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, and mental health is so, so important. And when we're providing those mental health days, or someone comes in, hey, I'm not feeling it, Or another one, to your point, when we provide empathy as well as self-awareness and emotional intelligence, we can look at somebody and be like, Ron, you're off today. You're usually in this bubbly, bubbly mood, and
Yeah.
you've been a little sluggish. Is there anything that I can help you with? How can I support you right now? Do you need to take the rest of the day off? Well, make sure that you are there supporting them, and I think that that really goes a long way.
Yeah. I always try to check in with my team to make sure they're okay. And Christy, if I haven't, who's on here, she's running the thing. If I haven't checked in with you enough, let me know. But it's super important. I want to make sure, because Christy and working virtually it's you're not together in the same space,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Even though we're communicating a lot, we're on text, we're on emails, sometimes we're on the phone, but for the most part, my team is all virtual. So I don't have that human contact that is really kind of necessary.
yeah,
That is one thing that we miss, but it's so efficient. I can have anybody anywhere working with me, which is kind of great. But I don't have that touch. So I have to be tuned in, and I always try to say, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for everything you're doing. I have people that have worked with me for a really long time, so I'm very lucky about that. But
mm,
I want to remember, like, to have that piece of, are you okay? How are things going?
that's
We're just going through
important.
the motions every day. So it's important to check on them. So I think that's great. And I'm always about that, because I wasn't treated so well in corporate America. And I want
Mm,
to make sure that I don't do that same thing. And it's important. And when I'm on site at an event, holy cow, every single person is important as the rest. Like, even if it's the guy who's sweeping up and just cleaning up the garbage cans, he's just as important as the host of this event, right? My client. So I got to make sure that everybody is feeling important, because it's going to make a difference.
yeah, for
um,
sure.
what are some common challenges that leaders might face when trying to lead with empathy, and how can they overcome these challenges?
Absolutely. I think there's a couple of different things, a couple of different challenges that can really arise. One is kind of like that work-life balance that we were talking about, or even the micromanaging. We live in a world now, or post pandemic, where working remotely is the thing. People don't want to go back into work, or even like you said, you can have a really talented person. You're in New York, they're all the way in California. I need to work with this person, sort of thing. So that work-life balance and the micromanaging can be a challenge, but there's also a way that to increase effective communication, right? And I think that a lot of people, if they would provide training for not only themselves as well as their employees, to effectively communicate, and like I said earlier, that vulnerability. Hey, I can be vulnerable enough with Annette to say, I'm not feeling it today. I need to take a half a day. Hey, Annette, can I work in the evening as opposed to the morning today? That sort of thing. And another thing is really setting those boundaries around working from home and so on and so forth. Like, hey, I want you to use the Pomodoro effect. Work for 45 minutes. Let's take a break together. Let's get on board and work another 45 to 60 minutes and take a
Yeah.
break and things of that nature. So the burnout isn't there. Um, because with those things, we're trying to decrease burnout, right? So
Mm.
just like working from home, we can be lackadaisical and throw a load in the laundry, but we can also work forever while we're working from home too, right? Especially if you are one of those introverted people and just really focus on work, you can work forever and there's no stopping ground. There's no line in between having dinner at my desk as opposed to having dinner with my family. So and those sort of things is definitely important. And I would also say another challenge is really just understanding your own leadership style. And it may not be a challenge, but it's definitely one of those things that as a leader, you should, and as well as with any other relationship, you should make sure you know what type of value you're bringing into it and what type of value you're expecting. So those expectations and those parameters can really be um, brought out into the forefront, and not like, oh, well, didn't do this. You've been working with me for 6 months, and you haven't done this, when that leadership style hasn't been set out in the beginning. So I
Yeah.
really think that those three
Communication.
things can really, really be the challenge, but there's always solutions for that.
Yeah. Well, communication is everything. When I did work in um I worked for some lawyers, entertainment lawyers back in the day. And even though they could be the counsel for, they're the lead, they're the head of the, I forgot what it's called, but they're the head of the department, right? They're running the department. And they're not leaders, they're attorneys. They don't know how to lead. They don't know how to manage a team. They have no clue. They're just hankered down, putting in the hours, marking, they're the worst. And every one of
Yeah.
them that I worked for, thank God, they allowed me to manage to do the management side of it. But there should not be in position. Now, not all of them, but the ones I worked with should not be in a management position because they just didn't have that leadership. They did, there was none of that. I think it's more now, but you mentioned something, what I was going to say. Oh, what's tough is a lot of people now, they got the bug with working from home. So it's hard now. I know a lot of people that have had to go back to their corporate jobs. And, now it started with like 2 days a week, and then it was 3 days a week, and now it's 4 days
Yeah.
a week. But they're having a rough time with getting back into the work, going, commuting, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm lucky to be able to not I can work anywhere. And I'm very disciplined. Not a lot of people are, so I can work anywhere and get the job done, but not a lot of people are. So I understand that there can be, having people back in the workplace is a big deal, but it must be hard now to have everybody, get people motivated to come into the office and be around people. And I don't know, just when you have the bug of working from home, if you loved it, because a lot of people did not like working at home from home,
Right. Right.
but that's a tough one to be able to manage. So, which is the next question is, how do you manage conflicts and difficult situations in the workplace? How can they use emotional intelligence to manage something like that?
Absolutely. So conflict is definitely going to arise
Yeah,
any single time. Conflict is going to arise, or when a person get negative feedback is definitely going to arise where you ain't telling me that sort of thing. And I
yeah,
think that when we do approach conflict as a us against the problem type way, then we can really come to a solution. I think a lot of people is like, well, we don't need you, sort of thing. They go to that first, but really the conflict, it really lies, if you understand conflict really lies in a person not getting what they need or what they feel like is basic need from their employer. So
hmm,
therefore, when conflict does arise, it's like, hey, let's talk about this, because usually conflict has been it's been this snowball effect, and you're just seeing the anger and the trigger. I had my last straw, and this is my anger and my trigger. But if you sit down with them and saying, hey, well, why did that happen? What's going on? Like, are you not happy here? Like, what's really attending to their needs and desires? I think that that is what can allow for a breakthrough, essentially, or just for us seeing those blind spots that we may or may not see, right? Just like with the work from home scenario that we were just using, if a lot of people don't like to go into the office, if a lot of people are structured to work from home, we can have training on how to work from home effectively. We can
right.
have training on, okay, you can be eligible to work from home if you hit these milestones. If you
Mm.
don't hit these milestones, then the consequences are for you to come into the office. Or even with coming into the office, maybe you can have half days. So one day is going to be in the morning because it's the traffic, right? The traffic has been crazy. Traffic has definitely
It's so
changed
bad,
for
especially in New York.
everywhere you are, there is
I know.
bad traffic, unless you're in a really, really small town, right? And
Yeah.
just so therefore, like, having, okay, you can come in the morning, or you can, or have flexible hours. I think that when you start going to flexibility and adaptability, then that really says, hey, I'm listening to you. I want your self development as well. But it's like, nope, COVID's over. I'm sorry, the pandemic is over. So y'all come back in, and it's like, this is a new normal. You have to
Yeah,
adapt to the new normal.
you have to check in to see, there was a 2 years where it wasn't
Yeah.
everybody was,
Yeah.
like, locked in, so I think you have to check in. I think the most important thing with that is, and I had a thought on that and I lost it now. Um, but, you know what? Not so when I was in corporate, I have it now. When I was in corporate, we would have these reviews, right? So I don't know, yearly reviews, and they were a nightmare. Like I hated them. I just, they would sit down and they had like this sheet
Yeah.
marked off, and
Yeah.
like, oh my god, it was so
Terrible.
horrible. I hated it,
It
and
was terrible.
like it was the worst thing ever. I think just checking in maybe once a month or every, just checking in more than just doing this yearly review thing
Yeah.
that I so hated so much. It was really horrible. But checking in more. I think just checking in with people, especially now, there's a lot
Yeah.
of stuff going on now in the world, and there's a lot of stuff. It's a lot different than it used to be back in the day, even when I was in corporate. So I think that's good.
Absolutely. And just all your horror stories from corporate are so true. And just you've been in
Yeah,
this space, and I've been in this space as well. And I feel like I'm this corporate avenger right now. Is because literally in corporate it just feels so chopping block. It feels just
yeah,
so, if I don't do this, then I'm always like going to be walking on eggshells, when
yeah,
it shouldn't be that, especially with the amount of people that work in your company. It really should be a human thing. And so many people talk about it. So many people nowadays really talk about being human and really touching on those emotions of people, like tugging on the heartstrings, being a storyteller, being just overly just trying to reach a connection.
right.
And then when we fail at that, we're going to fail. To me, in my opinion, you're going to fail at having that company culture. And that company culture is going to be that dry. Oh my gosh, you're not happy at coming to work and so on and so forth. No, I'm not happy coming to work because I could be in my pajamas at home
Yeah,
being more efficient, essentially. Because a lot of people feel like working from home, I can be more efficient. I don't have
yeah,
to spend 2 hours or more in traffic. I don't have to dress up and figure out what I got. I don't have to have water cooler top. All of those things are taken away, but I can sit at my desk for this amount of time,
right.
have my hour lunch, go back to work, and still be super, super efficient.
I know.
And
I
so really just
sort of stopped networking in person. It takes way too much time. And I save so much time by virtually being able to connect with people. Now it's not the same, right? You don't get a hug and
right, right.
like just all the stuff that goes along with being in person. And I love to do that, but it saves so much time. And
It
there
does.
um, masterminds that I used to be in, like groups that I would go and network with every couple weeks for years and years and years, then had to go virtual. And I have to say, I stopped going live because I just didn't have the time to go. It took out so many hours of my time to get to the meeting, and then that's 3 hours in the day. So it's a lot,
Absolutely.
but it is the human
Absolutely.
connection's great. And that's why events are so big right now, because everybody wants to get back together and, have
Yeah.
some fun. And so they're going crazy and having a great time, which is great. But there's no rules now really with the COVID stuff. I think pretty much
No.
I mean, we are saying like, if you're not feeling good, don't come, because people are still getting COVID,
No.
not like it used to be.
Yeah.
So, on the other flip side of that, we talked about the conflict and difficult situations. How can leaders use emotional intelligence to develop strong relationships with team members and promote a positive and supportive work environment?
Man, that one is huge. I think that so many, you can really 10x someone's talent, 10x someone's ability, as well as 10x a person and how they show up, just by giving them the support they need,
Mm,
just by simply asking, how can I support you right now?
mm,
Right? Whatever they're going through, how can I support you? Do you need resources? Do you need this? Do you need that? I think that for sure brings on that empathy of, hey, I care about you, hey, I'm here. But also when you talk about strong relationships, having that strong relationships, or even in the four tiers of emotional intelligence, that social regulation, it really just shows up as, I care about you as a person. How are we going to go towards this main goal, right? Strong, uh, having strong relations, having strong relationships in business is monumental, right? There's no man is an island. A company or a person can't do anything alone. So developing a strong relationship, it's literally having a partnership with your employee. We care about these lateral or or upgraded up level partnerships that we have, but then we think about our employees as being lesser than. Be that The employee should be looked at as your partner, because we're
Yes.
partnering in this mission. And I think that if you instill that, that's where that strong relationships are going to come from.
Mhm.
It's really just an exchange of energy, or like I said before, that vulnerable connection, and really just, hey, this is how you work in the system. Companies is like this really big system. We have these wheels, these gears, these
Yeah.
belts, these all these different things, and one of your employees or your employees as a group is one of those nuts or gears or bolts and so on and so forth. So if you aren't feeding and making sure that has well oiled and so on and so forth, and groomed and tightened and has maintenance, it's not going to work properly.
Right.
So I want more people to look at their business or their employees as this machine, and what does each person serve, and how do they serve, and how can I support them in that. I
Yeah.
think that will strengthen relationships across the
Right.
board.
It's respect both ways, right? It's respect and also building confidence. You said
Yeah,
something. If you are showing empathy towards somebody, you're going to build confidence with them. And I'm more likely, if I feel like someone cares about me or thinks I have the capabilities of doing what I'm going to do, or thinks that
absolutely.
boosts me up or gives me all along the way, even at the time, I'm over 30 years in this business. So I still need that. I still need
Absolutely.
encouragement, and I still need people to say, you did a great job, or the event was great, or thank you so much. Like, I still need that. So every client is a new client. Every experience is a new experience because every person is different. So I think boosting their confidence is really, really super important, because once I have confidence, I feel like I can just run with anything. And I think everybody feels
Absolutely. You can take over the world at that point.
that way.
Absolutely.
So, what are some practical steps that leaders can take to develop emotional intelligence and cultivate empathy in their organization?
Great question. Great question. I think that when we're talking about that, it's really just the open communication. It's really also being able to, um, I'm sorry, to being able to actively listen. Actively listening is so, so important. Being able to show empathy, being able to show up authentic,
Mm.
also being able to understand what's going on around you. Like, read the room.
Right,
Down to the point of read the room.
right.
And also always being able to be teachable in your leadership skills. Um, Being able to be teachable, just like you said, you've been in this field for 30 years, and
Right.
you're still being able to be teachable. I think that allows for not only for you to be able to listen, like I said, actively listen. So many people are trying to be interesting rather than being interested in someone else. And when you start being interested, then you are able
Totally.
to learn different things. Like, a 2-year-old does a perfect squat, right? I can learn from a 2-year-old, because it tells the 2-year-old does a perfect squat.
Right.
So we can learn from anybody at any time. And I think that when we open that up, then we're able to do that. So it's the active listening, it's the being empathetic, it's being authentic, it's always improving on your leadership skills, and then always being able to be teachable. Like, the people on your team, on who you work with, are there for a reason. So make sure that you are able to, like, I can learn from you. Your opinion matters to me.
Mhm.
And then when you do that, then anybody will offer you a kidney the next time you need it, for sure.
Always include my team. I can't think of
Yeah,
every design idea or we
right.
get together we brainstorm ideas. I can't think of it all. My
Yeah.
brain's fried now, so I can't think of it all.
Right,
But
right. And
I
your
need,
team is going to bring you the best
yeah,
because
it takes
you
a
show
village.
up as
I
who you
can't,
are.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Whenever I have a client that says, Annette, amazing, blah, 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 I'm like, listen, it's the team. If I'm on a call and my team did something, like Ashley did something that was so great. And I'll say, Ashley did that. I mean, you got to really, I worked for people who took credit for things that I did, which, it's on them,
Yeah,
whatever, that's their
yeah,
insecurities. So I just think, giving credit where credit is due is always, always important. And I cannot do it without my people. So it takes a village.
absolutely.
So it's really, really important.
Absolutely.
So
And a lot
that's
of people want to, I'm sorry, a lot of people want to bring in all of the roles when no, there has to be a visionary. There has to be a person to execute. There has to be a person dedicated for relationships. There has to be a person dedicated to print. There has to be a person to so on and so forth. So there has to be that. You just be the visionary, okay? You be the visionary and you lead others and build those skills and build those emotional intelligence, lead with emotional intelligence, and then the people will bring you the best, the baddest, and y'all will look together at this cohesive
yeah.
team or cohesive system.
And I think a big part of leadership is allowing your team to, don't micromanage, right? I think
Beautiful.
that's like, I love to delegate. I am the biggest delegator. I can't do everything.
Yeah.
Know how to do everything, but I don't do, I can't do everything. So, and I love to learn. I mean, I'm learning all the time.
Yeah.
I have a coach. I have a coach for everything, and so I need to help me keep going and not do this alone. And I think everybody should. A coach is very, very important. So I
Yeah.
want to know, so as just a little tip for people out there, you always have to have somebody helping you along the way as you grow, right? But what I want to know is, how do you work with your clients? So if somebody wanted to work with you, if a corporation wanted to work with you, how do you work with them?
Absolutely. So usually what happens with a corporation or organization, they come to me and let me know what their biggest challenges are. I always ask them, what are your biggest challenges? And what are your biggest initiatives? Like kind of like what's your goal and where are you currently? So I usually go in and do an evaluation of a team meeting or an event that they have, and kind of watch them how they talk to their employees or talk to their group or talk to their organization or how they do different things like that. A lot of people come off as, oh, I need to be assertive. Oh, I need to show up. Oh, I need to do all of these different things, when it's like, you forgot the human. You forgot the human in it. So I
Right.
kind of like pinpoint, these are the things that I saw missing from emotional intelligence piece.
Mhm.
And then we create an action plan on how we can integrate that into it. Because you can say, hey, I'm going to become more emotionally intelligent. But if you don't bring what you've learned and what you you've designed to your team and
Right.
allow them to understand what changes are happening, there's going to be pushback. Like, oh, now he wants to care about me. Oh, now they want to.
Right. Right.
No, so
Which
you really have to bring the entire team
I
on.
was just
So
gonna
we
say,
do
you
action
probably,
plans. Mhm.
right, like, you probably need to get everybody on board with, okay, these are some changes that are gonna happen, and if you see Steve or whoever who's the leader, making some changes, help him make those changes, right? Because you can't keep
Exactly,
him down
exactly.
either, right? Because he's human just like everybody else.
Exactly, because there's some people be like, okay, I've learned about emotional intelligence. I think this is great. We're gonna incorporate it tomorrow. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's not how we do that. We're gonna gradually introduce it so people can understand what's going on, because literally we're changing the entire culture of
Right,
this organization and group, and not for the bad, but for the good, right? For
right.
the very, very, very good, the overall good, the long-term good, right? I'm a long-term person, right? Like long-term relationships, I like long-term clients. It's for the greater good of the the long haul. It's the profitability, it's the revenue, it's to having employees to say, I've been working with you for 30 years. I've been working with this person for 20 years, and not saying, oh, we don't last, people don't last here longer than 9 months.
Yeah.
So it's really it's really those things that, it's the underlining benefits of having emotional intelligence in in your company or organization. So we do that. And then after the action plan, we kind of go through that, and then we do evaluation on what does revenue look like now? What does your retention look like now? What does the happiness of your employees look like now? What does the work-life balance looks like? And I think that those numbers that we see over time, if a person or a company is really committed to that, you're unrecognizable after working with me.
It's so fun to see that change, right?
Yeah,
They
it's
put in the
absolutely
work and they
beautiful.
do what you tell them to do. It's just
Yeah,
like an event. If you, if
yeah,
you want this and you have the budget, let's do it. But it's so great to see that
yeah,
transformation. That's
yeah,
really awesome.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where we're in the job for
Yep.
transforming. Really, it's the
Transforming.
night and day. It's the before and after. It's like I like the before and afters. Okay, when you go
Yeah.
into salon, you look very different when you come out. So we're here for that. Even with event planning, we're here for that. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep. Well, thank you so much. This has been so great. I love talking about this. I'm very big on making sure that, my team is happy and everybody's okay. And I can't do it without them. So I want to make sure they're happy. So I love talking about emotional
Mhm.
intelligence and, we all need work. I'm sure I'm not perfect on that, but I do try to make sure I learned all the bad things in corporate that happen and try not to do those. So I think those
Yeah.
are important. So how can everybody reach you?
Absolutely. So you can reach me on my website, www.zipporahmonique.com. That's ZIPPORAHMONIQUE.com. And we do have some books on Amazon, as well as some resources for you to kind of, if you want to just kind of understand a little bit more. And we also have an emotional intelligence quiz. But you can also look me up at my website as well as my LinkedIn. So.
Okay, good. Yeah. So we put the link in the chat so you can reach out to Zipporah. Thank you so much for being here. Very happy to have you. You're very awesome. And
You
thank
as
you.
well.
We're excited to have you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Annette. It was such a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, everyone. If you are a wedding event planner and you need some help in your business, come on over Event Planner Society Facebook group. Join us there, and we'll be back next week. Have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.